So this is the part two of my trek in the Ngorongoro highlands story. Um, so I had asked my guide, who was still with me at that time, Zuberi Omari, if I could get up early the next day and go back up the mountain, and so I could take some photos of the trees. And with a little bit of reluctance, he said that would be okay. They're always thinking about your safety, mostly in regard to wild animals. But he gave me permission. So I got up at the crack of dawn, which is about 6:45, 6:30 there, and I had my pack together, my cameras, and I got out of the tent. And as I got out of the tent, I realized that there was going to be a sunrise. For some reason, I hadn't really thought about that, so there was this glorious sunrise that was just starting to happen. So I walked about 2 minutes away from my tent, and I got a beautiful set of photos of the sunrise. So I walked about 2 minutes away from my tent, and I got a beautiful set of photos of the sunrise there at Nainakanoka village. And then I went up the trail and took photos of the trees. So I got my own selection. I don't have to look at Elliot Porter's anymore. I can look at my own photos. When I came back down, we had breakfast and headed out for the first day of trekking. And we got in the Land Cruiser and we went across a valley to where the actual trek would start. And the previous day, I had said to Alex, after my difficulties hiking, I said, maybe we should hire another guy to come with us who can carry the camera pack. So I figured this wouldn't cost me much money and would make the hike a lot more easy. And Alex said, I can carry it. And I said, well, you know, he's already getting paid to be my guide. Now he's going to carry the pack too. I said, no, that's okay. We could hire someone. He says, no, I was porter on Kilimanjaro. No problem. So we get out of the car and he shoulders the pack. I relieved it of the camera, the Hasselblad, and there's a hard drive with that and a couple of lenses which each weigh about 4 or 5 pounds. So I lightened it by about 15 pounds, or a little bit more, the tripod. But it was still about a 35-pound pack. Alex took this on and off we went. And initially, it was kind of cloudy and there wasn't a lot to photograph. I just took photograph of flowers mostly along the trail. And I wanted to get a photo of the jungle, and Alex asked me if I knew what stinging nettles were, and I told him I did, and we identified them. And I went into the jungle and I didn't really get a great shot. And I came back out, and as I came back out, I just barely brushed against a bit of a stinging nettle that was on the side of the trail there. And so I learned right then that stinging nettles really, really hurt a lot. And I avoided them in the future. But that was a good lesson. Just barely brushed it, had just a little rash. But it's kind of like a bee sting thing where you don't think much of it at first, but within a very few seconds, it impresses you with how much this is going to hurt. So that was my only encounter, fortunately, with stinging nettles. So we hiked down the trail, and I noticed that he was carrying a different spear from the day before. And I asked him about that. I said, why is this different? He says, this spear is lighter. So Masaai have ultralight hiking spears. Who knew? We finally got to where my cook, where the rest of the group that was with me, my cook, the guide, Ronaldo from the Rita Tours group, were. And we had lunch. And I was supposed to hike down into the caldera at Empakai, which is right where we were. But when we looked out, you could see the top of the volcano, Oldonyo Lengai, the mountain of the gods, in the distance. And it was clouds all the way down from that, and like they were pouring into a vessel. Unfortunately, the vessel they were pouring into was the caldera, so there was really no point. So I told Alex not to worry about it, that he could do whatever, take a nap, and if it cleared out, maybe we could go down later. And I went to my tent and I started working on a journal I was keeping. And after a little while, I noticed the sun was beating down on the side of my tent. So I woke Alex up, and he was clearly enjoying his nap very much. But he got right up, put on the pack, and down the trail we went. I was starting to feel a little bit guilty that he had to carry it. I told him that I would carry it back up. And he continued to point out like the bee tree where the beehive was and things like that. And we got down to the bottom, and MPK is a flooded caldera, and it's so mineral laden that you can't swim in. You can't go in, it's toxic. But there's flamingos in there, and there were some ducks that I had never seen, and it's just absolutely gorgeous. It was like walking into a scene from Jurassic Park. There's two Masaai guys there who watched me photograph for a while and then head up the trail. And there's one other guy on the far shore that I can only see through the camera. And that's it. I have the whole place to myself. And this was when it just started again to amaze me that, if this were in the U.S., there'd be a crowd of people here. It would be crowded and yucky. And here I just have it all to myself. And I felt really, really lucky. And after we hung around there, we hiked back up, and we were joined then at the campsite by Moses and his two donkeys. And the donkeys did all the carrying for the next 3 days of the trek. And it was great. We had dinner that night, and Alex, after dinner we had a campfire, and Alex began to sing a song. And I said, "Is that from Lion King?" And he said, "Yes." He was singing Circle of Life from Lion King. I said, and he sang for a while, and I said, "Is it like that?" He says, "Yes, it is like that." I said, "The lions talk?" He said, "Yes, they do." Then we talked about, I pointed out some satellites going overhead, and we talked about satellites for a while. And then I went off to bed. But at dinner, my cook, Rama, had given me something that looked like a dumpling on my plate. And I looked at him, and he said, "Is not wheat." So I ate it. And that night in my tent, I found out that it affected me exactly like wheat. And I had to get up in the middle of the night. And again, that's only my third night in Africa, and I'm in the middle of the bush, nowhere. And I've got to leave the tent in the middle of the night in pitch black. That's not a very comfortable feeling, I've got to admit. But of course, I did not get attacked by a lion or anybody else. And that was the end of my second night on the trek. Stay tuned for part 3.